Hola clase, it is time for section 7.2. This is describing what people and things were like using the imperfect of ser and a couple of spelling changes using u y e. Okay, so let's go ahead and start in with our first slide, which are these spelling changes. And these are spelling changes that have to do with using the word and or using the word or. Hopefully you remember that up till now what we've learned in Spanish is that the word and is e, or the letter y, and the word or is o, or the letter o. And there are just a couple of small instances in which those words have to be changed a little bit based on the sound that comes previous to them. Let me read through this slide. The word o changes to, or the word o changes to u before an o or an ho sound. And e changes to e before an I or hi sound in order to avoid repeating the same vowel sound. For example, here's one. If I want to say, I don't know if the dog is 7 or 8 years old. Well, no sé si el perro tiene 7 u 8 años. Now, if it were left in the normal spelling of or, it would end up being ocho años. And the two sort of melt into one another, and you don't get that separation of meaning. So we have an o to u spelling / sonic change so that we don't repeat the same thing. Same thing occurs with the letter y or e in español. Pero todavía es alegre e inteligente. So, but he's still fun and intelligent. In this case, it's e inteligente instead of inteligente, because if you were to leave it as the e sound running into the word inteligente, you would not be able to differentiate between the two. And that is the spelling change of o and e in español. I'm going to practice it a lot in class. We'll move on from there. Okay, did imperfect tenses last week, and this week, same thing. We're going to piggyback on that with one very important and highly used irregular verb in the imperfect tense, which is the verb ser. So you have era, eras, era, éramos, erais, and eran. So era would be like I used to be, or yo era. Tú eras, you used to be. Él, ella, or usted era, he or she used to be, or you formerly used to be. Éramos, we used to be. Eran, they used to be, or you all formal used to be. So if you wanted to describe what something used to be like if I want to say, for example, my house was very happy, I'd say, mi casa era muy alegre, or something along those lines. Or yo era muy ruidoso, I used to be very loud, or something along those lines. Okay. One more. Whoops, this is in the way here. Move me out. There we go. So the imperfect of the word I, remember the word I, there is, there are, is there, are there, it is había. So if you want to use the imperfect form of that, you want to say there was, there were, was there, or were there, you would use this word había. The plural form is the same as the singular. For example, just like in the word I, where the plural is the same as the singular. For an example, hay una tienda aquí. There is a store here. Okay? Antes había una iglesia y ahí había 3 tiendas allá. So before, there used to be a church there, and there used to be 3 stores also, or there used to be 3 stores there. So again, había is just like the word I, only it is taking place in the past instead of the present, right? Okay, está bien. Let's go ahead and take a look at your current vocabulary for this week. And as you can see, it says describing what people and other things were like, and some of the verbs or some of the words are more connected than others. Let's begin with el primero, el aire puro, which is fresh air, el aire puro. Aventurero is adventurous, aventurero. Bondadoso is kind, kind of like the word simpático. Consentido, consentido is someone who is spoiled, consentido. La contaminación is contamination, or another word for that would be like pollution, polución, contaminación, almost the same thing. Conversador, someone who is very talkative, conversador. Egoísta, someone who is egotistical or self-centered. Excuse me. En aquel entonces would be back then, en aquel entonces. En aquella época, in those days. You'll notice that those two mean almost the same thing. This one literally translates to in that epoch, but we don't really separate our lives into epochs so much. So, en aquellos tiempos, it would be like saying in those times. En aquellos tiempos. En mis tiempos, in my time, or back in my day. La fábrica is a factory, la fábrica. Gigantesco is gigantic, gigantesco. Impaciente, impatient. Peligroso is dangerous, peligroso. El ruido is noise, el ruido. Ruidoso is the adjective noisy, ruidoso. Sencillo is simple, sencillo. Solitario is solitary or lonely. El tránsito is the traffic, not el tráfico, but el tránsito for the word traffic. Few modern conveniences which we might take for granted in some cases. El agua corriente, running water. El agua corriente, the water runs. El aire acondicionado, the air conditioned or air conditioning. La calefacción, this is heating. La electricidad, electricity. La estufa, the stove. La lámpara de la calle, street light. La lámpara de la calle. La leña is wood, la leña, or firewood. And then el pozo is a well. So el pozo. So if you don't have agua corriente de la ciudad or city water, you would have el aire corriente del pozo, right, from the well. Y ya está. You might be asking yourself, but don't we have any extra credit? And the answer is yes, we do. I would like you to write 5 sentences on a note card using conjugations of the verb ser in the imperfect tense, describing what you or your family or your home used to be like. So it can be, you can use lots of current vocabulary, like in my day or back then or when I was a child, things like that. But using each one of them should use the passive voice, should use the conjugation of ser in the imperfect tense. Write 1 line in Spanish, 1 line in English, telling me what its conjugation, or excuse me, what its translation is, and that will be all. And that is also the end of our lesson for section 7.2. Hope all is well. If you have any questions or you need anything, feel free to call, email, or bring a question on into class. Chao, hasta luego, y adios.